Tesla CEO Elon Musk offered to fully buy Twitter so it can be transformed as a private company. Musk just became Twitter's largest shareholder, but says the social media giant needs to go private so it can better serve free speech. In a letter sent to Twitter's chairman, Musk writes in part, quote, "I invested in Twitter as I believe in its potential to be the platform for free speech around the globe. And I believe free speech is a societal imperative for a functioning democracy."
I'm all for free speech so long as we have free markets that go along with it and the freedom to sue people that actually slander you or spread hate speech.
Accountability.
So let's have accountability. And so if these tech billionaires, they want to own social media companies, that's fine. But they just need to live by the same rules that family businesses have to live by in the rest of America. And right now they're not because of Section 230. But, so let's bring in right now columnist and editor for New York Times Deal Book and co-anchor of CNBC Squawk Box, Andrew Ross Orkin. Andrew, I know you just talked with Amazon CEO Andy Jassy last hour. We're going to get to that in a moment. But first, what about Elon? Elon's in, Elon's out. He's buying stock. He's on the board. He's off the board. What's going on here?
Everybody is at Twitter. We actually talked to Andy Jassy about that from Amazon as well. But look, right now, there's a big question as to whether he can actually finance this offer. So he's put this out in the world, but doesn't mean that he can do it, even though he has $270 billion to his name and Twitter is worth something like $40+ billion. It's unclear whether he actually unto himself is going to be able to buy this as an individual, or whether he's going to actually have to go out and get either a bank to loan him money or to find a private equity firm or somebody else. So there's still some big questions. But clearly, Elon Musk putting Twitter to some degree in a box about what they're going to do. It's a take it or leave it bid. He says, that's how he's going to do this. So there's going to be no negotiation over the price. And then the secondary issue, but which may be the first order issue, I think is the one you're raising about free speech, about what Elon Musk wants to actually do with Twitter. Lots of people speculating, for example, that perhaps President Trump would be back on an Elon Musk-owned Twitter. He really believes in a sort of laissez-faire version or view of this, raises question about information, misinformation. So there's going to be a lot of political implications on this as well. Some of that could filter over, as you know, to his business at Tesla, which requires or has been reliant for many years on tax credits. Again, politicians involved there. And also SpaceX. Politicians involved there because a huge contract has gone to him from the Defense Department. So there's free speech, there's free markets, there's government, it's private, public. In a way, it's a microcosm of everything.
That spread lies about healthcare, that spread lies about elections, election falsehoods, that allows slander.
Right.
It's just really, it's the greatest argument to radically change Section 230 to make sure that companies that spread hatred, that companies that slander other people are actually held accountable.
That's
and that we don't put a protective bubble wrap around these billionaires that own social media companies. In a sense, I hope he takes it over because, I'm all for free speech. Let's have free speech, but let's stop protecting the billionaires, the trillionaires that run these companies that can spread hate speech, that can spread lies, that can do the sort of thing that nobody else can do without being hauled into court. I'm all for the free market. So I just want to know, why doesn't the free market apply to Facebook? Why doesn't the free market apply to Facebook or Twitter? Why doesn't the free market apply to other social media platforms? The free market needs to apply to those platforms. So, all right. When people say they're for free speech, I'm for free speech. That's great. But let's make sure it's free. Let's make sure it's free. Let's make sure we don't have the billionaires' social media Silicon Valley protection plan in place. Let's actually have free, unadulterated speech. And if people spread lies, spread hate speech, spread slander, they're held accountable.
And it was between myself, between Cernovich, between Elon Musk, going back and forth about how Twitter is imposing, and they've got up now the letter that Elon Musk had sent over, but it was talking about how Twitter was imposing these censorship rules arbitrarily, and all of them were enforced in one direction. All of them were to either censor or smear conservatives. We brought up Covington and Nicholas Sandmann. We talked about the high school kids that were smeared there. We talked about so many people that have been slandered and censored by Twitter.
We've seen over and over and over again the things they call misinformation, things they quote unquote fact check, things they call false and misleading to actually be true. And the false and misleading statements oftentimes end up being from the other side. We've seen this over and over again. One great example, Hunter Biden's laptop. They called that fake. They called that Russian propaganda. They called that Russian disinformation. They deplatformed people from Twitter for reporting on this. They went after people for reporting on this. They cited false information coming from our own intelligence officials who were talking about this.
Being that Twitter already is supposed to be the public sector of the 21st century. So Musk responds to this, and he says, well, that doesn't seem fair, right? He says that seems kind of one-sided, to which I respond, buy Twitter and take it private. And the reason I mention that is because I know that Musk has connections with Jack Dorsey. He's friends with Jack Dorsey. And there was a whole rumor going around in 2016, right after Dorsey was reinstated as CEO at the end of 2015, that Dorsey wanted to take Twitter private because it was sort of this Frankenstein's monster kind of situation where Dorsey originally wanted to just create this sort of SMS-based open chat, standard for the internet. And then it ends up becoming the most powerful website in the entire world. Right? Didn't mean to create that. And so he didn't want to impose these issues on it. And you can hear, by the way, in Sorkin's interview right there on MSNBC, he says the quiet part out loud. The regime does not want freedom of speech. The regime is terrified of freedom of speech, and they are going to strike back at Elon Musk for this. And he says they're going to call your Tesla, your stock options, and all your SEC comments into question. Now we're going to talk about SpaceX. We're going to talk about your DoD contracts. He's saying the quiet part out loud.
So there's going to be a lot of political implications on this as well. Some of that could filter over, as you know, to his business at Tesla, which requires or has been reliant for many years on tax credits. Again, politicians involved there. And also SpaceX. Politicians involved there because a huge contract has gone to him from the Defense Department. So
guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You live in an oligarchy, and this is a situation where Elon Musk is playing games that only he can play. The regime does not like it because he's the richest man in the world going in to purchase this, actually has the ability. They're terrified. They are terrified of free speech being restored in this country. And now suddenly they're talking about, oh, well, we might take away your contract. We might take away this contract. Elon Musk, of course, has become very, very fabulously wealthy through a lot of government contracts, a lot of government activity. And so the regime does not want it.
There's simply too much at stake. And the regime, as it operates right now, all of the major stakeholders in the regime absolutely depend on a tight control of information flow. The regime depends on censorship. The regime as it presently stands cannot coexist with genuine free speech at scale. Therefore, this is not any kind of ordinary hostile takeover. It's a direct challenge to the regime itself. And I think that is the fundamental dynamic at play that will determine all of the strategic moves and all of the responses going forward.
We don't need to just talk about what it is. We can see what it is, because when you go look at the city of Shanghai right now, where I lived for 2 years, I had an apartment in one of those towers the same way that we see right now, and see a living hell on earth that they've turned it into an open prison where they're starving out 26 million people.
这个是正常的叫，完了终于200人，所有人都在叫。 要命了！就刚刚5分钟前头，俺叫完没几个了，现在突然之间，所有人都叫了，要死！
This is what these people are trying to institute here in the United States of America and across the West writ large. They want to turn you into some sort of insectoid serf who is just not able to own anything. You'll be happy. You will execute no political leverage or political power whatsoever. You are meant to go to school, to get your degree, to get into debt, to go to work, to service your debt, to come home, see what's coming up next on Netflix, and you will not live a meaningful existence of substance because they want to disconnect us from God and they want to disconnect us from moral truth. So go look at Shanghai right now. The people and the powers that be that are fighting against Elon Musk are the same people that are trying to institute that kind of authoritarian power, Xi Jinping style power here in the United States. So it's very simple. Do you want to live in the world where they will drag you out of your home and kill your pets with a shovel in the street because they deem them a threat to society, or do you want to be a free citizen?